So you want to be an it girl? Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you.
You do a shit ton in a creative entrepreneur career. You have a podcast called How the Fuck Did You? You produced and starred in your film A that went on to the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Not a small feat at all. You perform every Monday in the Holy Shit Improv show. And you're a working actor. You've been in a show like Crazy's Ex-Girlfriend and many, many more. So you're an actor, a producer, a comedian, a filmmaker, and an artist.
It's too much. It's too much. But yeah, I do a lot of shit. I have a crazy brain that has to like do creative things, or I'm a maniac person and you don't want to be around me. So it's a good thing that I have all of these outlets.
We love that you have all of these outlets and outfits.
Don't forget it.
But it's fair to say you're doing a shit ton.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when you are in these spaces where you put yourself out creatively, we can face a lot of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were starting out, did you think, or maybe you still do have some thoughts about it, were you ever someone who felt fear of judgment?
Yeah, totally. 1000%. And I think that comes from growing up in an environment where I was told like I can't, where being an artist or being an actor or anything in entertainment is not a career path that you can succeed in. You know, like you're not going to succeed in this. It's really hard. You're not going to make any money. You shouldn't do this. And so I think that's originally where I was like, where a lot of my doubt and not having confidence came from, was just being told like, you're never gonna be able to do this. And I think it's hard. I think a lot of maybe not a lot, but in people that I've talked to, a fair amount of people are like, oh yeah, like my parents said that that's not a good career path, or some version of that. Like it seems like it's pretty rare where a parent is like, yeah, do that thing, like go be in the arts, which like I get. I do understand it, but it did for sure inhibit me and caused a lot of like, should I even be doing this? But I think you get to a certain point where you're like, oh, I actually have to do this. Like if I don't do this, I'm a very unhappy, unpleasant psychopath, at least in my case. So yeah. And then I think just like with time, the more you do things, the more you, like grow your network, the more confidence you build. And I think for me, it started, I started being curious about confidence. And like, I guess it was the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, before the pandemic. And I just saw, I'm in the comedy space. So I saw a lot of my friends and peers just exude confidence, whether it was on stage or off stage. They were so confident and I wasn't. And I was like, well, what the fuck, man? How do I be like you guys? So I started asking like my confident friends to grab coffee with me just so I could like pick their brain, which is another like go-getter entrepreneurial thing like we were talking about earlier. And it was great. Like I was having great conversations, but then the pandemic happened and we got locked down. So I couldn't do that anymore. And that's when I got the idea for my podcast, because I was like, oh, you know what? These are really good conversations and I'm benefiting a lot. I'm sure other people would too. So I started How the Fuck. Season 1 was How the Fuck Did You Get So Confident? And it's all about different people, whether it's artists, actors. I started just talking to random people that I like met on TikTok. Like I interviewed this woman, Judea Kirsch, who's the first Black rodeo queen of Arkansas. We had a conversation about confidence with her. I interviewed this woman, Clarissa Rankin. She's a truck driver. And obviously that's a very male dominated field. So we had a lot to talk about in terms of like confidence and self-doubt and all of that shit. And so I think like doing a new skill, which was like learning how to do a podcast. I'm sure you relate to this, like learning how to like operate sound and edit and promote and do all those things. Like just learning a new skill in and of itself helps you build confidence and like negate that self-doubt or that like negative self-talk, but then also talking to people about mental health stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a great combination to help me at least, just be like, fucking whatever, man. None of it matters really anyway. So it's just like, you might as well do what you want to do, you know?
Right. So for you, was it like kind of like the calling that pushed over the fear?
Yeah, I would say it was well, it was really like doing everything else first. Cause like I went to
Mm.
college and I got a business degree. I have a bachelor's in business and I graduated in 3 years because I was like, I fucking hate this. And like that should have been a sign that I shouldn't go down that path. But I was like, I'll just like get it and like appease my parents or whatever, and I'll get the degree. And then I got like a desk job for a hot minute and I had a full on panic attack, like crying, like blacked out, couldn't see. And I was like, I can't do this. So it was really just like trying everything else first and then being like, just, I kept coming back to like just the arts and acting and writing and just anything in the creative world. And I was like, I gotta do this. I have to do this. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you have to do it, then you have to do it. And I think it also takes some like naivete and honestly like stupidity on my part, because it's
Yep.
like to actually think you can like do it, it's like you gotta be kind of stupid. It's like the stupid people.
Yes.
It's like the stupid people who like keep going despite everything else are the people who like end up successful or quote unquote successful. I think there are very different ways we can define success, but like as the people who like just didn't stop. And
Yeah.
I think like I'm in that category of like the idiots who are just like still going, you know?
I love that because I think ignorance is bliss does a
Yes.
lot here.
Yes.
Like does a
Mhm.
lot in entertainment, does a lot. I mean, honestly, I think in just other places, like acting as if we can really just like level you up in your career. So
Totally. 1000%. And I think also it's like, this is like we're gonna get deep dark fast, but you know what? We're here, we're doing it. I had a friend in 2020. He was killed in a motorcycle hit and run accident. He was on a motorcycle, someone hit him and drove away, and he was 28. He was very, very young. And he was one of those people who, like, you would never imagine them dying. He was just one of those like effervescent, like bubbly, wonderful, talented, hardworking person. And it's just like I hadn't experienced death like that before. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I hadn't before then. And I definitely hadn't experienced a young death because it's like backwards. It's like, no, wait, you're supposed to grow old. You're not supposed to die at this age. This doesn't make any sense. This is completely fucking backwards. And that really, really affected me. And I eventually came to terms with the fact that, like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. This sounds really morbid, but this is like truly how I feel. It's like we're all gonna die. We don't know when we're gonna die. We're not in control of it. The only thing that's certain in life is that we're all gonna die. It's like the only thing that's constant is change. And so it's like, I guess I just gotta do what I want to do because you don't fucking know. You don't know when your last day is gonna be. I mean, especially with how crazy our fucking country is right now, you know?
oh yeah. And
So it's like,
imagine if you're at that desk job when it happens, like you didn't really live like your full
exactly,
potential that like you don't want to be doing. So it's like
exactly.
might as well skip the judgment there because at the end of the day, like it's gonna be you and your what you did.
Yeah. And it's also like, I think it was like a Brene Brown, not to be like trite or cliche and bring up Brene Brown, but she has some good points. There's something that she says about like how she doesn't consider other people's opinions if they're not like in the ring doing the same thing and like being vulnerable in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's totally true. Like if I'm making something, if I'm creating like a video or a film or a play or whatever, and you're critiquing it and you're not also doing those things, like I'm not really not interested in your opinion because you don't know the hard work that it takes or like the years of training that goes into it. So it's like I kind of try to remember the source and who is telling me this critique or whatever version of that, whether it's like negative or whatever, it doesn't matter. But like the judgment itself, like who's saying the judgment? Who is that coming from? And sort of like remembering that so that I don't like it doesn't affect me as much. If it's like my peer, right. Like if it's like you giving me a critique who's like also an actor, also does podcast, like who's in my world, then I would consider it. But if it's just some fucking idiot on the internet who's like in his mom's basement, it's definitely a dude. It's always a dude being like, I don't like this. Then it's like, what are you fucking doing, man?
Right.
Care, I don't give a shit.
And even then, it's like, yes, you can be in the same field. And it's like, you could do the same to me. I respect you. You're an actor, you're a podcaster, comedian, whatever. And like, even so, like, I can hear it and receive it, but like, I don't have to change every ounce of my identity as an artist because of your feedback.
Have you always been like that? Or did you
No,
used
not at
to?
fucking
Okay.
all. No,
Okay.
not at
So
all.
you used to like hear something and be like, oh, this person said it should be like this. I'm going to change it so that it's like that. Yeah,
Totally.
I was like that too.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what that is. I think it's like the idea of like if somebody is giving you unsolicited or solicited advice, that you feel like you should be grateful and feel like you need to take it and you need to do it. And like I will still start the process of receiving that advice and like actively do it, and I have to be like, stop. No. Like you don't have to do whatever. I still definitely run on that ring.
It's hard, especially when like you're in the arts in a creative field where there isn't like a right or wrong way. It's not like a job that requires like a lot of math where it's like, no, 2 + 2 is 4. Like we all agreed on that. This is like so subjective to where like there is no quote unquote right way or wrong way. But yeah, I get that when you get feedback or whatever, feeling like you have to incorporate it. And it's easy to just go like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. But I think like the older I get and the more situations I've been in and just like the more experience I've had in this career, the more I see like, you don't always, this other person doesn't always know. So it's just like, take what works for you and like leave the rest,
So when you get criticism of like your work, it could be any range of it. Like what is that like? What does it feel like for you? How do you kind of get into like you're in such a good fuck it mentality about it? Like how did you get there?
Yeah. I think it depends on what type of feedback it is. So like I do a lot of live shows and it's mostly improv. So for people who are listening don't know what improv is, you usually get a suggestion and you do a show on the spot based on that suggestion. There's no rehearsing. You just make it all up as you go. And I think failing a lot in that arena, like really helped me get over it. Right. Cause it's like, there's nothing like failing in front of a live audience because like that's instant feedback. If people are laughing, like they like it. If they're not laughing, they don't. Like, immediately who's on board and who's not. And it's a craft and it's a skill and it takes a long time to get like decent or good at it. And so I think like honestly, failing is the thing that like has helped me get a fuck it mentality. It's like the successes have not been as helpful as the failings because that's like where you learn and you grow, you just have to like push through and like get back up. And as long as you do that, I really think it's the growth is in the failure is really how I feel. So I think like me developing a fuck it mentality came from failing all the time, and like that's just how it is as a comedian, whether you do stand up or improv or whatever, like it takes a long time to like develop like not even being good, but like your point of view on the world, and developing jokes based on that. So yeah, I guess it just came from failing.
So I have a curious question, and I think this might relate most to like stand-up comedy-ish vibes or like improv vibes. You're like on stage and like it's just you're bombing, which means you're doing horribly if you don't know. And do you take any of that home with you? Like how do you kind of leave it on okay, what do you do with that?
I used to. I don't anymore because I've done it so many times at this point where like it doesn't bother me anymore. I guess that's another thing is just like you kind of develop a fucking mentality the more you do the thing because it's like it doesn't bother you as much. It's you just kind of get what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but like if it happens so many times, you're just kind of like used to it, so it doesn't bother you as much as like the first time you fail, you're like, oh my God, I'm awful. I shouldn't do this. Like I'm not funny, but it's just, that's not true. You are funny. Like it has a lot to do with like the room, how many people are in there, who's there, what night of the week it's on, how's the weather? Is it raining? There's probably not a lot of people at the show. There's so many other factors. But yeah, I mean, bombing used to definitely affect me. And I used to go home and be like, that exact thing. I used to like question like, should I be doing this? Am I even funny? Am I wasting my time? Am I wasting like back then, like I was still doing classes too. I'm like, am I wasting money on classes? Like, am I ever going to make money on this skill? And it's not great. I think comedians especially have it hard because like I feel like a lot of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but like we don't have the best upbringings, which is kind of why we went into comedy in the 1st place. Because it's like that was always the thing that made people like us, was the fact that we could make them laugh, and if we're not laughing, we're crying type of thing. So yeah, it was really hard. And I think like on those in those moments, it was just like a lot of, I'm trying to think of like how I dealt with it in real time. And it was pretty much like just a lot of crying and being like, what am I doing? And feeling all the things. Cause I don't think it's healthy either to like ignore those feelings, you know? So I think letting myself feel those feelings and doing what feels good to me in those moments. So usually it would be like eat something yummy, drink water, go to bed, and wake up, and I usually will feel better the next day. But it's hard in those moments to like know that everything's going to be okay and that it was just one show. And I think again, it's like you just got to do it again, because like chances are the next show you're going to do great and you're going to be like, so like I'm done work, great, this is great. So it's just like so many highs, and I'm sure you relate to this. There's so many like highs and lows in this career, which is like one of the hard things about it is learning how to kind of like never be in like the middle. At least that's how I feel. It's like it either you're way up here or way down here, and like when it rains it pours type of thing. Is that like how you feel in this career?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I'm in a huge poor stage. It's just been like a little bit of a poor fest, if you will, in that one. But like at the same time, like it's okay. I already know I'm supposed to be doing this. I can't really do anything else on some level. Like I'll be so unsatisfied. But I do come back sometimes to the judgment. I'm always like, oh my God, do other people think I'm ridiculous that I'm still doing this and I've only gotten this far and blah, blah, blah. Like that actually really, I go through really strong ebbs and flows. I don't want to act like I have it all the time, because I definitely don't. But like I definitely do go through the stir of thinking like, other people think I'm ridiculous doing this.
Are like the other people that you're referring to, is it like people in the industry or like people back home, or like who are those people that you're imagining?
I don't know. If I maybe both. I think, somebody who might just like click on my Instagram page, maybe I think they think that about me, but like maybe sometimes people in the industry, or maybe sometimes like people just I know, I went to a college where like a lot of, particularly the girls, really blew up in acting, which is amazing. It's really cool to see, but like sometimes you're kind of like, should I move on? It's definitely like the judgment of thinking, other people you may know see this person doing this and you're supposed to be doing the same thing, but you're not in the same place at all. That like fear of that judgment on me still honestly really affects me, even though not all the time.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I think like, I don't remember who said this quote and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like comparison is like the death of creativity or something. And I think I think that's so true. And there's something to it. That doesn't mean that like we can snap our fingers and not compare ourselves to other people, because that's just like the nature of being human. But I do think like the more we can feel those feelings and then take a step back from them and like look at it from a more aerial perspective and be like, okay, well, maybe that person is on a TV show or whatever, but like I have a podcast. They don't have a podcast, or like whatever the thing is, it's like, you also don't know like how their experience on that show, or what we don't know. And especially if we're comparing ourselves based on social media, no one's fucking posting the bad shit of their life on social media. They're only posting the good shit. So it's like, you can't even trust that as a source,
Right.
like, I mean, I don't know. At least I feel like most people don't post bad shit on their social media. It's only the good shit.
Yeah, I feel like there's recently become a light trend of people will post themselves crying, but it's like always in relationship to like, I cried and then here was this successful thing. Like it's kind of
Mm.
next to it. And it's like, which like I understand, like we're trying to show a little bit more a realistic thing, but at the end of the day, that's still a very curated
Yes.
post. Any form of media, except for honestly maybe improv, is pretty curated. Like
Yeah.
it all comes down to there is some kind of plan. And so it's just like it's impossible to think that that photo of, you know, XYZ actor and then their deadline article next to it is the whole story.
Right.
Like that's planned. That like
Yep.
they upload or if they have a publicist, I don't know.
Yeah.
They put this picture with that picture to tell a story, which is great. That's how media works. But like the messages are still, there's a lot of space in between.
It's hard because it's hard for me to get behind, and I need to be better at social. I wish I could just hire someone to do my social media, honestly, because it feels, and you might have an answer for this. To me, it feels like really inauthentic a lot of the time because it is a curated, we do curate it so much. And I don't know a way to not do that. Like, how do you make social media authentic to your voice and like reality and not so curated? Does that exist? Is it possible?
I think on some level it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Personally, I think on some level it doesn't exist at all because it's still putting together things. But I do think you can find a voice in the platform that is you. However, like for instance, I'll use the podcast as an example. When I'm which I honestly post a lot more than my personal. When I post for the podcast, it's very girly, it's chaotic. It should be I'm doing a million different things. It's the trumps and the failures, except for I don't really share that many triumphs and failures at all. Like I maybe should more. It's pretty girly, it's pretty LA. Like that's like the funnel I'm using to talk to. I feel like I'm talking to other ambitious women. When I use my personal, it's much more I'm trying to use acting on it. So I try to sprinkle in, here's what I look like in real life. These are the things I do. You know, if you want to cast a Coachella commercial, I'd probably be perfect for it. But then here's my headshot and here's a self-tape. That's kind of like how I've started to see that. That's not always been the case, but yeah, that's how I've started to.
That feels like very business savvy.
Yeah, because I think at some point in the artist place, they're a calling card.
Yeah. You're totally right. That's why it's like I think I made the mistake of making my Instagram too personal. And I've like regret a lot of that. Like I will not be posting like my relationship stuff anymore. Like all of that shit, I very much regret doing because I like brought people into this world and like I'll just use my personal life, for example. Like I got a divorce and I think it like shocked a lot of the people who followed me on social media because they're like, but you got everything looks so perfect. And it's like, yeah, no shit. That's what social media is like.
Right.
But it was so like, and this is, I guess, a part of being judged too, is like, that was a big part of like deciding whether or not to like stay in my marriage, because it was like, well, what are other people gonna think? Which is obviously no reason to stay in a relationship or a marriage. But it's like when you roll in the same circle and when everybody has seen your wedding photos online, it's like there's a whole nother level of pressure. So I think that was a big learning experience too when it comes to judgment, is like be mindful of like what content you're putting out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's not a place I want to get judged on. I know that that social media is inherently going to come with judgment from others, but it's like, I don't want that in my personal life. I'm fine if you're going to judge like my career moves, but my personal life is where I don't want judgment. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to put that on there anymore. You know what I mean?
It just didn't sit well with like the rhythm on you. Like,
no. And it's like, I think I would, if I were to do it again, I would make like a private Instagram and then like have a public one that's dedicated to career stuff. I'm sitting in a weird spot where I don't really know how I feel about social media. And it's like, I know I have to have it because of the career that I chose. Um, but I haven't found a way to do it and like it, you know?
Yeah. It like, do you know what the thing that like holds you back from it is?
That holds me back from like what
I don't know, just
specifically?
diving into social media a little bit.
Yeah, because I feel, yes, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is a judgment thing. It's like, what, why do people care what I think about this topic?
Mhm.
Like, I'm not a guru on it. I know what I know, but it's like, why do they care what I'm doing, if that makes sense?
Mhm.
So, like, I
Yeah.
don't know how to get past that. Like, they don't
It,
fucking care.
well, and that's the weird thing about caring about judgment on social media is like there's a little element of like you have to be you and be the person, and like vulnerable content will do well, and like wedding photos will do well, and like, you know, posts about really extreme vulnerability will do well, but like yes, you're going to be faced with judgment online about that. But at the same time, like if you're too in the middle and like sometimes don't have like a polarizing opinion,
Mm.
that that doesn't do well either, because like I feel like societally we're just so focused on being in a polarizing place.
Yeah. I think it's more like accepting that like social media isn't real. Like it's not. There are some real moments on there, but like you said, it's a lot of curated things. Accepting it for what it is and being like, okay, well, if I want to be genuinely authentic, it's got to be in a different space. Like I can still do that. It's
Mhm.
just like I don't know that it's going to be on social media. I don't know. It's such a weird balance, you know? Because it's like I don't know. Do you like posting about your personal life on social media?
Yes, no, I mean, I like, you know, don't post like the most deepest darkest secrets about like, you know, the inner workings of my family or whatever.
Mm,
But like I think the podcast has been really liberating in that way, and I've like really started to see how people do live in that way because of posting for the podcast. But it's like a very funneled version of me, even though the brand is still somewhat like authentic, if you will, but like
yeah.
it's still, you know, not, I mean, that's not me all the time. It's sort of like
Yeah.
picking up a comedy persona.
Mm.
Like it's sort of like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that too. Like I I feel like I'm honestly in all the public spaces that I'm in, the most authentic version of me is on my podcast. Like
Mm,
I feel very comfortable sharing personal things. I wonder why I feel personal sharing it there, but not on social media. I guess it's because it's like I'm doing it in a phone. It's like an inanimate object versus like having a conversation with
mhm.
somebody feels more like genuine and authentic, like the flow of it. Um, I don't remember where I was going with that, but
You feel the most
what are we talking
authentic in your
about?
podcast.
What did you say right before this?
I said it feels like a comedy character
Yes,
sometimes.
that's what you were
Yeah.
saying. Yes. Like I had a really hard time just going into comedy at all because like I am a trained actor, like I'm like a thespian actor, like trained in
Same.
New York City, like very like I think I like poo-pooed comedy for a while because I was like, like no, I do theater, like stupid stuck up shit like that. And when I started being in the space more, all I saw was there wasn't a lot of women, there were a lot of men, and the women that were there, and I don't blame them at all for this. I really blame the environment that was created, but like felt like they needed to be quirky, overall wearing, non-threatening, non-makeup wearing, don't look cute type of people to be welcomed into that space. And I know that because I've talked to women who did like were like, I loved wearing makeup and looking cute to perform. I was told not to do that. I was told to dress down, to not wear makeup. And it's like that was a huge turnoff because it's like you should be able to wear whatever you want, put whatever makeup you want
Those are
on,
all
do
that
whatever
opinion. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like that should not dictate whether you're welcome on a comedy stage or not. So I had a really hard time continuing to be in comedy when I saw that happening. But eventually, and I think it really came with like also like the death of a friend, 2020, isolation, the ending of my marriage, like all of those things combined really made me stronger and develop that fuck it mentality. Because it's like, oh, I did everything quote unquote right, and it still went to shit. And so I think that's something like to remember too, is like, even you could even have like I talked to somebody who had like a normal job, like a normal 9 to 5 job, who had like a stable paycheck and like fucking retirement and all that shit. And they got fired out of nowhere. So it's like, you could lose it all either way.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well lose it all doing the thing that you enjoy doing. So it goes hand in hand with like the failure thing. You know, I think that really helps you understand what means something to you and what doesn't, you know?
Right. Yeah, I keep coming back to the idea. It's like, well, it's like, if this is, so morbid, but like the end, like I'm going to really have wasted so much time not doing the thing or not still going after the thing, because the thing that pushed me away was like the judgment. Like that's so little in the big scheme.
And the truth is, like, people are going to judge you either way. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're like the most success, because like I have like super successful friends, and I'm sure you do too, and they get judged all the time. So it's like, even the most successful, creative, wonderful, talented, beautiful people get judged. So you really can't avoid it. You know?
You can't avoid it. You have to learn to work kind of with it. Do you think you've learned to work with it at all?
I think I've learned to be I think I've learned to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because I do really think that makes life a little bit easier. And like, I'm a very like nihilistic, I'm morbid person. So it's like hard to get me to be like super positive about anything, but I do feel like it has made life easier. Because and honestly, it started with improv. Like, you have to know how to be or how to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because you're never going to know what to say. You're always going to be on the spot. You play with people that you don't know a lot of the times. It's like, I'm just meeting someone and now I have to like make up funny shit with them for an audience. It's like, you're going to be uncomfortable. So learning to like just the vision that I got just now was like, move like with the waves kind of instead of against them. But that's easier said than done. It takes like a lot of practice and a lot of therapy. I mean, I've been in therapy for a long time, and I think that has been super helpful in me developing this like fuck it mentality. Are you in therapy? I can't remember.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
You've been in therapy for a long time.
Yeah, for a hot minute too.
Yeah, okay, me too. Yeah.
A big fan of therapy. How do you think what you just described about improv could apply just to somebody's daily life?
Ooh, that's a really good question. It's so hard for me to like think of someone's daily life, because my daily life is so different than other people's. So I'm like, I guess it depends on like what the person's doing on the daily.
Ooh, okay. I'll give you a situation.
Yes,
how about that?
I love this. Yes.
Stunning.
Okay.
Okay. Great. You work at a marketing agency.
Sure. Great.
And you come up with an idea that for this ad, and your boss 1 thinks it's amazing and boss 2 hates it. How do you handle it?
Do you like it?
Well, yeah, it's your fucking idea.
Well, sometimes you do something because you were told to do it, and like to do it a certain way, and you don't like the thing that you did, or you're unsure of whether you like it or not. If you like it, I think it's really about like digging deep and going like sitting with yourself. And a lot of people don't even want to sit with themselves. It's like, it's hard and confronting. I think that's why meditation's hard for a lot of people, because you're really confronted with your thoughts. But I think you really have to sit with yourself and your feelings and go, do I like this thing? Because if I like it, then fuck what everybody else thinks. I think a wrench is thrown into the equation when your income's on the line. And I think that's really hard, because I can say like, oh, if you like it, it doesn't matter all day. But if you need to convince your boss to like a thing, or you don't get paid, or whatever version of like, I don't know, you don't get commission, or that's different, because you have to like appease that person, which is why like, I guess that's why I like have never liked having a boss, because it's really hard for me to be like, oh, you want it done that way, even though that way is like boring and stupid. Like, okay, I guess I'll do it that way.
Right, but you won't let his or her judgment in, which is so interesting because I think other people like sometimes will like it just runs them.
I think you have to sometimes if you want, like, if you want to like move up in your company, or if you want to get promoted, or if you want to keep your job, you have to like learn to like go, okay, well, they want it this way. I think it should be done this way. But in order to get paid, I need to do it more their way. I think it's just keeping it all into perspective. I think that's like the biggest thing. Cause like as an artist, I think it doesn't matter what other people think. You can make whatever you want. And like someone will like it. Like a lot of people might not, but someone will. But if like it's your boss, I feel like that's like different. It's hard.
Right.
That's hard.
I have another scenario.
Okay, I love it. Hit me with it.
I'm into this game. So we're talking about being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
From improv. So you're at a job, you're up for a promotion, and your favorite coworker, who is strictly a coworker relationship, but your favorite one, is also up for the job. How do you deal with the uncomfortableness of this situation?
I mean, I think if you're both professionals, it shouldn't be like that uncomfortable. I mean, I guess I don't want to be like, don't feel that way. So you're saying someone would feel uncomfortable because you're like, oh, but I really like you, and like we're both deserving of the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not even really up to you at that point. It's up to the boss's thing. So I think like being uncomfortable. I think now that I'm talking, I think like being real about it and not like beating, like, what is it? What is the fucking phrase? Beating around the bush? Is that a phrase? Did I make that up? No.
Nope, okay, you didn't make that up. That's real.
Great. I'm not a genius. Cool. But like instead of being like flirting with the topic, I think people appreciate just like being direct, like and being like, listen, I like you so much. We're both up for this thing. If you get it, I'm gonna be so happy. Like I'll be a little bummed because like I would love the extra money, but if it's not me, I want it to be you. And like I just want to let you know that. And like if you get it, I'm still gonna love you and I'm still gonna want to have lunch with you. Like I think just like saying how you feel, which is also an improv tip. It's like if you see something happen, like call it out. Like a lot of times in improv, not a lot of times, but like there'll be a fuck up where like, let's say this is a very simple example, but let's say you named a character Chris at the beginning of the scene and someone called that person who has already been named Chris, Kevin or something. And like everybody heard it. Like the audience heard it. You miscalled that's not the same name that you came up with at the beginning. Everybody on stage knows it. Instead of glossing over it, like use that quote unquote mistake in your scene, because it oftentimes will bring about something really funny and like another like little side pattern that you can play. And so I think it's about like not glossing over the things and instead like calling it out and being direct about it. And I think people appreciate that.
No, I think that's like very, for lack of a better word, mature, but also like it's acknowledging, it seems very intelligent, like top of the intelligence there to like call it out and have the, it be acknowledged by you, the audience and whatever. It's like, okay, we're all on the same page. Oh, I just had another thought, but I just forgot it. Come back.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
No, I'm thinking,
but yeah, it is. When like, we teach improv too, or like if you're a student or whatever, we teach playing to the top of your intelligence, because it's like your audience isn't stupid. I mean, sometimes your audience is stupid, but like we all heard the thing. We all heard the fuck up. So if you just gloss over it, like one, it's a missed opportunity for like a fun moment. But two, the audience is going to just be like, we just heard them say the wrong thing. Like, I guess we got to just like, it's going to cross their mind. So yeah, I think just like calling it out. And like, I don't know, do you appreciate someone, and everybody's different. I think like you have to be able to also like read the room. Right. And I think as an actor and as like a podcaster, like you're probably very good at this, about like being able to like, one person may prefer something like very direct and another person may prefer it with like more flowery language. And I think like being able to determine what person wants what is really helpful in learning to be uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, because it's not like you are being fake about it. You're just like, oh, everybody's different. We all receive information differently. We all communicate differently. I can give them the same information, but go about it with like a different tone or like with a different like style or whatever. And it might be received differently. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think there's such a beauty in that, but there's a little bit of a curse in that too, because I've been on the curse end of that, especially when I'm scared of people's strong voice, opinion, or judgment. I will curve too far to their comfort style, then I won't say what I mean, which is not good either.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like a delicate dance. Like,
Really
so you're
delicate.
saying like wait, say that whole thing again.
So if let's say I'm talking to somebody who has a really strong opinions and judgments, or I've made up in my head that they have really strong opinions or judgment, or I just see how they act in the world and they're harsh.
Mhm.
I will sometimes tailor my approach way too far to like cater to them, which is not a good skill.
So like, would you be like
People pleasing, kind
yeah,
of on
okay, so
some
like
level.
when
Yeah,
you send an email you would put like extra exclamation points or
sure, something
like
like
that's a
that.
very like simple way of putting
Yeah,
it. I say that
something
'cause, like,
to that. I've started to learn that behavior or unlearn it a little bit, but like, yeah, so but you have to still say what you mean, but yes, you can tailor things to be said to a person
yeah.
correctly in a
Yeah.
way that they'll receive.
Has that been in those moments? And I don't know if you've had like a
Mhm.
lot of them or not a lot of them, so you might not be able to answer this question, but like when you tailor your words to that like harsh direct person, has that like played into your favor or not? Like, is it helpful? Like, do you get the outcome that
Yes
you
and
want?
no.
Okay.
Yes and no. And it really does all come back to my fear of judgment. Um, like, yes, sometimes I will get the thing I want, but I usually stepped on like my own personal moral levels, respect, my own personal respect to get it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and on some level, I used to think it was like manipulation, even. I was like, oh, I'm like manipulating them to get what I want. And so it doesn't matter. And it's like, that's not a healthy thought. And there's a middle of this. Like, I can speak to you the way you want to be spoken to and still say what I want to say in the way I want to say it. And you can
Yeah.
receive it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we're all responsible for our own feelings and our own actions. So it's like you can say it in really what I mean, I guess there's like a way to say it to get things done, but also it's like if you offend somebody or anything in that world, if that's, I mean, this is pretty harsh, but that's like partially on them. Like if it's not something, if not, I'm not saying if you're like, fuck you, you suck, like then like you're an asshole, obviously. But if it's just like the tone or the way you say things, it's like, that's on them. Like,
Right. Well, and that's the thing too about judgments is judgments are usually on them too. Like what they are pointing out or don't like about you. Not always, but I think often, it's become prevalent that we talk about this as an example. It's saying more about what they're insecure about than what you're insecure about. And I do find it to be true. I also don't always think it's true, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think like another thing is like, okay, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with what you said about like it goes against like your morals or your values or whatever. I can't remember the exact verbiage that you said, but like it's like what can you live with? What can you live with easier? Can you live with which is another thing that happens with like my therapist told me this in relation to my relationship and I was like, "Oh my god, this works for everything." It's like would you rather wake up tomorrow after you have sent like a lot of extra exclamation points and kind of like tried to people please this one person, or will you feel better waking up tomorrow if you kind of just you were more direct even though it made you uncomfortable and you feel like kind of judged? Like which one would you rather wake up with? And there's no like right or wrong answer, right? It's just like tomorrow, what can you live with? What's easier for you to live with?
Right. And I've been in that place so hard. I was on definitely the people pleasing like way. And I thought that was making my life easier because I was like, oh, everyone's happy, everyone's taken care of, whatever. But I didn't realize that was actually causing me so much anxiety because like I was denying the like true voice of Marley being like, no, I actually like I don't want to be spoken to this way or treated this way or appease people all the time.
Yeah.
So then it became, this was like 2020, 2021, like so glaring to me when I would do it. Like I would be just so mad at myself when I did it because I was like, I feel false. I feel phony. Like I'm not saying what I mean. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I've talked to a handful of people on my podcast about like people pleasing stuff, and someone put it really well, and they were like, okay, when I people please, am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Like, am I doing it to get what I want, or am I doing it because I genuinely want to help this person's life?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, a lot of the time I was doing it for myself. Like, it's like, oh, can I, this is a stupid example, but like, take you to the airport or something. Like, that's not inherently people pleasing. But if like, are you doing it because you want something in return later, or are you doing it because you genuinely want to help someone get to the airport? And so I think that's a very interesting way to go about, like, if you feel like you're people pleasing, going like, well, why am I doing this? Like, what's the motive behind it? Because I think that'll be really telling on how like you can move through the world moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, it's just such a it all these things like judgment, people pleasing, operating, like it feels like it's so up above our heads, but it's like right in front of your face all the time. And it's just like, you know, how you choose to hear other people speak about yourself, how you speak about yourself, or what you think other people speak, and then how you operate, all innately comes down to like, well, what can you deal with at the end of the day with yourself?
Yeah, truly. It's like, what can you live with? What is easiest for you to live with? Because like a lot of times it's like neither outcome is ideal. Like it's like you don't really want to do either of them, but like which one can you live with easier? And I feel like I've never really had a hard time with people pleasing. I'm like the opposite, where I can be too direct and like too I don't want to say opinionated, but like I could use some like flowery language sometimes. And that's kind of what I've had to deal with, is like learning, like, for lack of a better word, like how to not be such a bitch all the time. And like, and it's not like I try to be. I try to be direct because I feel like there's no then you won't I can't get misconstrued if I'm being direct, you know? Right. But that has bitten me in the ass too, because people are like, okay, chill out. Like, be like, get a little nicer about it. Like,
I know,
oh my
there's
God, I'm so sorry.
so many elements spinning there. There's just so many. Like, what in your life have you felt like has changed to like kind of allow yourself to be at peace with like all of those things?
Well, I do think like I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that like if you're a woman with like a strong direct opinion, you're pretty much automatically labeled a bitch.
Totally.
And I think like if a man were to do and say that some of the things that I do and say, they'd be like, oh my God, he's such a great leader, you know? And then I say it and he's like, they're like, fucking bitch. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so like I feel like that's something that's on the table too. But wait, what was your question? I forgot now.
Like, what's something that is like, this is a lot of elements spinning. Like, what has allowed you to like be at peace kind of with just like who you are and how you operate, and judgments of yourself and or what others could have out there too?
Yeah, I think that's hard. Like being at peace, I still think it comes back to that like whole like what can I live with mentality. And I'm not always. I think it's also accepting that like, yeah, I'm not always going to be at peace. That ties back to like learning to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. It's like appreciating the peace when it comes, and the gratitude that I should and I need to be better about showing gratitude. But like in those moments, being grateful and showing gratitude for having that inner peace, and then but knowing that it's not permanent, you know, like nothing. And I think that's also helpful, is that like this too shall pass is true with negative and positive things. Nothing stays good forever and nothing stays bad forever. And so I think that has also been pretty helpful for me, is learning that like nothing is permanent. And it's like liberating, but also scary at the same time. The fact that nothing is permanent, you know, it's like I really think the only constant in life is change. And so knowing that, I think I can rest easy being like, oh, if I feel a certain way in this moment, chances are I'm not going to feel like this tomorrow or next week or next month. And I think that's what gives me peace, is just like knowing that change is inevitable. But again, like I have a pretty like nihilistic view on the world. Like I think my favorite thing that I've ever heard, and I'm so God, I need to like write down who says what, because I'm like, I heard this great thing, and then I have no idea who says it, and I can't credit them. But it was nothing matters, so anything can. And as soon as I heard that, like, it doesn't resonate with everybody, but it resonated with me because it's like, ultimately, we are fucking specks. We're on a floating piece of dust in an infinite universe. Nothing we do really matters. Like, no one, you're not going to be remembered. I feel like a lot of people are like, I want my legacy to go on. Like, I want to be remembered. It's like, well, no one's going to remember you. I don't remember. Like, people don't just like write about random people. Like, I don't remember anybody from like 500 years ago. There's like a handful of people that like we know, like historical figures, you know? So like nothing really matters. So you get to decide what matters in your day-to-day life. And I think that was really liberating when I heard that. Being able to have the agency of being like, oh, I get to determine what I think matters and say fuck it to the rest. Yeah, I think that helps me feel at peace, is just like determining what matters to me and like just following that, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally. Oh, Rebecca, I could chat with you all fucking day.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk to you all day.
I could talk to you all day. Please tell the audience and everybody where we can find you, see your work, the whole shebang.
Oh my God, yeah. My Instagram, which I need to work on. We all learned about that. But if you want to watch my journey of trying to be good at Instagram, my handle is _Rebecca Lee. That's pretty much where I am in all the places. It's _Rebecca Lee. And then my podcast is called How the Fuck Did You? Season 1, all of that is still up. It was all about confidence. How the fuck did you get so confident? And this season is how the fuck did you bounce back? And Marley has been a guest on my show, which hasn't aired yet, but by the time this airs, your episode will air. So if you haven't listened to it, listen to it, because it's a great fucking episode. And we talk about how do you lift yourself up and like be a phoenix and rise from the ashes of like shitty moments in your life. So you can check that out. It's like on all the podcast places, the Apple and the Spotify and everywhere.
Stunning. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, thank you.
So you want to be an it girl?